It's episode 6. We are the Dr. Tottenham Pod. We are at Dr. Tottenham, at Dr. Tottenham on Twitter. I'm at Ztronch. Vasconi is with us at VCon1. We've got Tim Alexander at TIMMAH621. And from sunny Spain, we've got Dan. He is at Yidvids. A little bit of a Run DMC show we've got working here. I guess we're sponsored by Adidas. Everybody represent. We've got Jam Master Tony with his Adidas Tracky. Look, you can find us just about anywhere you find a podcast. We have a YouTube channel. We'd love for you to subscribe. You've been great about giving reviews, and we'd love for you to continue to doing those, and we appreciate your questions. They set the agenda, and we're very grateful. We had a match yesterday, and only one of us watched it. Therefore, only one can discuss. So, Tim, I'm going to turn it over to you. What were your main takes about Watford yesterday? And I hear we lost.
Yes, I did pay the £5 to watch it because you know me, I'm going to pay money to watch a meaningless preseason fixture. And so I did that. I think the first thing we got to look at, and then I'll say this, I wasn't going to watch it until I saw Ndombele in the starting lineup. So I said, okay, yeah, that's worth £5 to watch.
Right.
So
right.
I think the first thing to talk about is Ndombele, because that's what a lot of people want to know about who weren't able to see is how do you perform? And I'll say first, before getting into his performance, he really does look slimmer. He does look like he has slimmed down some. He still has that stupid fucking lackadaisical gait that makes it look like he's tired 30 seconds into the game, though. And I think that's just the way he runs. I don't think that's dealing with fitness. I think that's just how he runs. But overall, it really was a performance of a player who hasn't featured yet in preseason at all, who is behind the team in terms of fitness and just in his preparedness. It wasn't anything to dispel previous notions that he's a player that doesn't give effort for the squad. So it's not going to inspire you. The things that I saw with it is the tactic. He sat back further of the two defensive midfielders. Harvey White was the one playing forward. And I don't think that fits well with him because he was just waiting for possession. He wasn't the one being involved in the play. And with the effort or the lack of effort that he gives, he's not really shielding the back four. So I don't think that tactic fits well with him. And I think that had a lot of impact on his performance in this game. His effort, he just jogged around a lot. There were many times where he was walking when we're not in possession. He was pointing for other players to pass the ball to elsewhere other than himself on a few occasions. Now, when he gets the ball, he has that spark. You can see his creativity. It's like he just snaps into life, but it's when he's off the ball that it's just very lackluster, and it doesn't mesh with the rest of the team who was playing a high press. It kind of killed a lot of our efforts. And in the second half, when he went off, when Dele came into his role, the team really did have a lot more energy. You could see kind of his effort in the first goal that we gave up. Now, I want to be clear, it's certainly not Ndombele's fault, and I'm not trying to say it's his fault. If fault is being apportioned for that goal, it's due to Sanchez for not closing down the player and letting a shot come in for 25 yards out. It's down to Joe Hart for not saving a shot that came in from 25 yards out. So I'm not putting the blame on Ndombele, but what I'm saying is that if he gave effort off the ball instead of just jogging around, maybe that shot doesn't happen because he was jogging with the run of play, but he wasn't really trying to get involved in it. And so maybe if he gave that effort, that goal doesn't happen. But I'm not saying it's Ndombele's fault. Just overall, it's not a match that inspires you. I was a bit disappointed and unimpressed with his effort that he gave, and that kind of falls in line with what we've seen from him in the past, whether that's down to just fitness levels or him not wanting to be here and his mentality not changing. I don't know. But that was my take from kind of Ndombele's performance.
Well, let me take a quick step back because I was shocked to see him in the lineup. I mean, last week we were talking about him having COVID. So I'll start with Vass. Were you surprised, Vass, to see him in the lineup at all?
Yeah, I had no idea that he was even back or training or whatever. So what Tim has
Vass's
just
ITK
said,
is shit.
Well, we know this already. Tim.
Was that confirmed, or were we just speculating that he had COVID? I mean, I thought it was announced that he had COVID.
No, it was reported that he were tested positive for COVID. But he must have completed his isolation, and then he was, good to go. But it just mirrors really what Timmy was saying about his performance. I kind of wouldn't have expected anything more, given that he's totally behind the eight ball right now in terms of fitness, because he's not been there from the start or from when he should have been, and he's going to be playing catch up, which isn't ideal. Timmy mentioned his gait and the way he runs. Dembele was a bit like that, if I remember correctly. He looked a bit heavy when he was moving. So maybe Ndombele is just one of these guys who maybe at Lyon he had other people fetching the ball for him, and then once he was on the ball, he did something. I don't know. But it'll be interesting to see how it kind of pans out. I wouldn't expect to see him in the first few games if he's not up to speed fitness wise. Did have a couple of questions for Tim though. I did see the goal that we conceded, the first one, and it just seemed like Joe Hart was totally out of it. That ball went into the goal from the middle of the goal pretty much. And by all accounts, Sirkin didn't have a great game. I think he was at fault for the first. He gave away a penalty for the second, I heard. And then finally, the only other observation I've got, or comment I should say, is that Harvey White seems to have been doing quite well in these pre-season friendlies, and curious to see where we go from there with him. But what did you think about that goal we conceded, Tim? Was it Hart should have done a lot better, I thought?
The angle of the camera, you don't know if it's coming from being obscured. I mean, there were two defenders kind of in his way, so you don't know when he actually got a chance to see the ball. It was hit with some pace. It kind of went into the bottom right corner. It wasn't in the center of the goal, but he certainly should do better, and that's not going to be, the first goal he wants to give up in a Tottenham kit. But yeah, Hart could have done better with that. But I mean, that shot should have never happened.
All right, we've been on 10 minutes, and Dan has not spoken a word. So I'm going to give a hat trick of questions to Dan. Number one, Dan, is Joe Hart any good? Number one. Number two, did it surprise you that he got a start? And should we read anything, number three, into losing to a championship side a week before opening up the Premier League?
Joe Hart's a decent keeper. He's a fine number two, I think. I think he's as good as Gazaniga is, especially. We've gone through the homegrown stuff and why it makes sense for him to be there. If Hugo gets injured, am I going to be very confident with him in goal? Not really. Was I confident last year with Gazaniga? No, either. I think in terms of that shot, I did actually see that goal, and it did look like he was blocked off. And either way, I don't think he is ever going to get back to his best at Man City of 7 or 8 years ago, or even England. But I mean, yeah, like I say, fine number two. And in terms of the friendly, and reading too much into it, this is just my opinion. I just do not care about friendlies whatsoever. Yeah. I got burnt the day that we beat Roma. I think it was, maybe it was 2008. We beat Roma 5-0. I think Darren Bent scored 4. Yeah, and I went, "This is our year. This is our year." And then we ended up getting 2 points from 8 games. So.
Well, and Dan, not even that long ago, but last season we won the Audi Cup.
Oh, exactly.
Look at how the season started out.
We beat Bayern as well, didn't we? In that,
so the secret then is to have shit
penalties, mind you.
Yeah, didn't Bayern win every game in their Champions League run? So I mean, really, we're the European champions. But no, yeah, I mean, I get it. I think I think the first half, you can read stuff into first half of preseason games because usually the side's settled and it's the same 11. But then the second half comes along, and I don't know what it was like yesterday, so I can't comment. But you get about 6 subs at once, and it's just like, this isn't a game anymore. It's just you must just be running around a track, basically. But yeah, I don't think reading too much into it. I think some of the meltdown on Twitter was over the top at best. I don't know whether it's other clubs do this as well, but Tottenham do love a good old meltdown.
Yeah, we did.
I think the secret then is to have shit pre-season friendlies. But we had a question from Jonathan Webber at Jonathan Webber 82. Tim, are we shipping Ndombele out? He didn't do much apparently, from what you were saying or what this listener thought.
Hey, hang on, Tim. Wait. Before you answer that, I just want to say one thing, and I didn't watch the match, but it is a little bit disheartening to me. If there's one thing, like I couldn't have cared less whether Ndombele played well or not. I just wanted to hear that he played with effort, that he ran around the pitch, that he was really trying. And one of the first things he said was, "I was just kind of jogging around and maybe you know. And I mean, if there's one thing that I would think that the manager would tell him is fucking put a shift in, put some effort into your performance today. And it didn't sound like that was really the case, was it?
He puts in effort when he has the ball at his feet. It's the rest of the game when he doesn't have the ball at his feet. He's not putting in that effort. And if you're playing the deeper lying of our midfield too, that is just horrible to waste that spot on someone who's not going to put in effort, because you need to be, shutting down players, keeping them from getting to your back four. And it's not a spot for Ndombele. He needs to try more. But yeah, with that listener question, are we shipping Ndombele out? I don't think this preseason friendly is going to have any impact on that decision. So him not doing much in it isn't going to be the final straw that broke the camel's back on this. It's really just going to be, is Levy willing to let him go and concede defeat? And I just don't think he is. And I don't think it's a good business decision to sell him right now, because I don't think we're going to get the fee that we want for him if we are going to let him go. So might as well see if you can make it work.
Yeah. And I keep on coming back to the only club that was really sort of rumored for him was Milan, right? And I just keep on coming back to that thought of, well, if Jose Mourinho doesn't have patience for him, how is Antonio Conte, right? I just can't see Conte wanting a player that jogs about and is going to be a bit of a project. All right.
I got some other takes from the match, though, because that was just Ndombele. A few things to look at. Some of the younger players, like Vas was talking about, Dennis Sirkin, he has lots of composure on the ball. He is not one to shy away. He calls for the ball to be played to him. He dribbles it up. He was caught out of position a few times. On their first goal, he was attacking and caught out of position, so he wasn't there to defend on it. Their second goal, he's the one who conceded that penalty kick. And maybe VAR would have had a look at it at the spot, whether it was outside of the box. It was certainly right on the edge of it. But it just shows, a young player who that's going to be a learning moment. You got to maintain that concentration. You can't allow a player to drift in behind you. And certainly when you do, and you get beat with that, you can't take them down or put a hand on them at all when they're close to the box. And so he's going to learn from that. But he's a player that I'm excited to see this season. And Harvey White, I'm really excited to see him get some minutes. And I feel kind of bad saying this. I really do. But I would be excited to see his name on the team sheet over Harry Winks. And I don't know why I'm just saying that. And I feel so bad saying that. But I think it's just the age difference and coming up through the academy. I mean, he looks like he has a lot of potential. And maybe he's a player you don't loan out and you keep around the first team and you give some of these minutes to. I'm really excited to see him play. Juan Foyth, I don't know what we're going to do with him. He's just so unreliable in our own third to feel comfortable putting him in the back four. In my opinion, he's too careless in possession. He had a couple misplaced passes in our own third. He kept fucking trying Cruyff turns in our own third, and they weren't working out. Luckily, one of them, he got fouled on it, a very soft foul, but the other one, he gave up possession. You don't need to be making those moves when you're on the back line of defense and losing possession like that. So I don't know if Jose is really going to feel comfortable with him, because we know he likes solidity in his back four, and Juan Foyth just definitely doesn't scream solidity with his errors in possession with the ball. And the last one is Cameron Carter-Vickers. I mean, he looked pretty solid the first half. He continued on his form from some prior games. I don't think he's a long-term answer here. I think it's really more just him putting himself in the shop window before moving on, because he is in the final year of his contract. Second half, he struggled a bit, getting beat on a few chances where a ball was lobbed over the top and on a counter from a corner, getting beat with pace. So I don't see him being here long-term, but he's making a good argument and making Levy's job easier in the shop window once this secondary period after the normal transfer window closes, where you can still do deals between English league clubs. So those are kind of my takes on the youngsters. And then just the last two things, high press, it's still a tactic we're doing. Pretty much everybody except Ndombele was doing it, and it helped create errors and turnovers in the final third on numerous times, but it left us exposed defensively a few times. And then the striker issue, which I think we're going to have a discussion on later, but you can see that we still struggled without Harry Kane. And it wasn't for a lack of effort. It just doesn't work, especially when you're playing against a back three. Son as a lone striker is not going to be the one to play against a back three. And it doesn't help with REA just trying to whip in crosses every time. Son is not a player who's going to go up and get that header, especially against a back three. And that really killed a lot of our attack because that's kind of REA's first look to do. Whenever we're coming down with him in possession, he just whipped in a cross, and it gave away a lot of our chances. But we're going to have to find something to deal with the striker issue and quickly, because without Harry Kane, it really doesn't work. But of all the preseason matches, this one was the best one because Watford took it seriously, and it gave the team a good warm up for the Premier League. But those are kind of my takes from the Watford match. Oh, and lastly, Sonny's mentality. I don't know if you've seen the video clip, but at the very end of the game, just sprinting back 92nd minute to clear the ball off the line. That's the type of mentality you want.
Oh,
and Sonny's got 4 goals in 4 preseason games, and he's on form heading into the season.
Lovely. Real quick before we move on, did Doherty play at all?
No, he's
with Ireland, isn't he?
Oh,
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, international call-up. Of course. All right, look. All or nothing is all the rage. And everybody talked about it all week long. I got to ask you, Dan, did you get all 3 episodes in?
Yeah, I did. Yes, I did. I was late on it, but I got them all in.
Yeah, look, I'm the nothing part of all or nothing, but it's not that I don't want to know about it, because I kind of do. So this is kind of a cool segment because now you guys get to tell me everything about all or nothing. So Trey Terry at Trey Terry's like, definitely need to spend time on the Amazon documentary. So how do we feel about it? Dan, I'll start with you. You watched all 3. What?
So I watched all 3, and I produced a hot take after 1 episode that this was the biggest bunch of shit basically of all time.
Really?
But I stuck with it. Do you know what? The first episode I thought was horrible. I didn't really learn anything. It was just pretty much Pochettino getting sacked, and
You didn't learn anything.
No, not really. Like not. I mean, I'll get on to what I learned like in episode 2 and 3, because I think episode 2 and 3 gave you a really good insight into the club, into Mourinho, into how he works. I think episode 1 was sort of setting the scene that as Spurs fans we sort of knew already. I don't think you got too much insight into the workings of Pochettino because he was barely interviewed in it. I think he had maybe a minute, 2 minutes tops of talking to camera with Jesus, with Jesus or whatever his name is. And yeah, it was just a little bit of a shit show. I mean, it was all about us losing the Champions League final, then losing to Bayern and blah, 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 blah. But to be honest, yeah, so my take then was, fuck this is shit. I'm not going to watch this ever again.
Yes.
However, I stuck with it. And it was good. So yeah, I don't know what you guys thought.
All right. Yes. Why good? Why is it good?
Listen, I always felt, having seen other all or nothing programs, as I've mentioned previously, the NFL ones, for example, you do get to pick up little snippets, little human aspects, little interactions behind the scene that someone as a fan wouldn't ordinarily see. And that was good for me because we have all this idea of what the club is. That it's this machine and this, Levy's a cunt and Enoch a cunts and everybody is like, ripping off the fans and everything else. But what you get to understand is that they're all human beings and they all have interactions, they all have emotions, they all have something to offer, and playing for the club means something to them. But I think we also need to remember that this documentary wasn't just made for Spurs fans. So whether we sit here and think, it's going to be like just a corporate thing that's been heavily edited, or it's going to be a pile of shit and we can take the piss out of it being all about nothing rather than all about all. This is for a wider audience. This program, as all or nothing programs are, it's not just for the fans of the teams involved. So from that aspect, I think we need to understand that it's not always going to be to our expectations, I suppose. Certainly worth a watch, though, Sam.
Tim, do you think, while you're watching any one of those first 3 episodes, did you feel at all it was sanitized?
I think a little bit. I mean, certainly with Pochettino, I've said to you guys, my speculation is there was something as part of his release from the club that footage wasn't going to be used. I mean, he wasn't erased from the documentary completely. The first half of the first episode was pretty much leading up to his sacking, but I think a lot of that is certainly sanitized on the exposure they give for the Pochettino situation. Watching them clean out his office, I mean, man, that was tough to watch. I didn't like that was shown at all.
To watch. It was tough to watch.
Certainly it was. They had the cleaning people, just picking up trash and stuff and like clearing out his office and vacuuming it, getting it ready for Jose. I hated that. I wish they wouldn't have shown that in there.
Let me expand upon that, because I heard a snippet. There was a conversation, and I think this was on it, where Jan was talking with Harry, and they basically admitted that it was the conversation with Levy was basically, you're out and we're going to pack your shit up.
You leave the night. That's what it was.
That was really it.
And I think their choice to play the press conference from early in the season where he talked about the transfers and needing to change his title because he's just a coach and he just coaches whoever's brought to him. I think, it's certainly there's an agenda putting that in there. You can tell Mourinho is the star of this. He really is. Mourinho's the star, and the backup supporting cast is Harry Kane, Son, and Dele. They're looking for the commercial appeal for it. So it is sanitized a bit, but it's the small things on it that I like.
Yeah,
exactly. The small things like, there's a situation in the third episode. They're on the team plane, and Winksy's pissed. And they're like, Winksy, why are you so upset? Dele backed into his car in the parking lot. And Dele's like, well, you got your high beams on looking right at me, and I can't see where I'm going. And so, things like that are right when Jose's appointed, they're playing a little game of keep up in the hallway, and Serge kicks the ball onto a drink and knocks it over on the Jose shoes, like right before one of the first training sessions. So things like that, that's what I like. You get to see the human side of the players. I'm surprised how often Sky Sports is on and the players talking about it. Wink's talking about social media coverage and media coverage about the Jose signing. Things like that is what I wanted to watch. But the biggest thing, which we got a question about it, the biggest thing for the documentary for me, Craig Emanuel at Crimble123, main question thrown up by the Amazon documentary. Should you wet your toothbrush before and or after applying the toothpaste? And do you rinse the toothbrush after spitting? Dele was like blown away when he's, getting his pre-training massage. He's like, you don't put water on it before you put on the toothpaste and after. And so I guess for us, how do you brush your teeth?
Well, I saw 2 polls about this on Twitter. Unbelievably, it was doing the rounds. But yeah, wet your brush, put your toothpaste on, wet your toothpaste, and then brush your teeth.
No,
rinse.
That's what I do.
Yeah, I'm with you.
And then you do rinse the brush after you spit. What did you say, Sam?
Why would you wet your toothbrush, then put the toothpaste on? You put the toothpaste on, then you wet the toothpaste. No?
No, because it's a double layer. Yeah, see, Dele was so surprised that the other guys wouldn't wet your toothbrush first, then you put on the toothpaste. But I mean, the toothpaste forms a barrier. You gotta get the bristles wet, then you put on the toothpaste, then you gotta, kind of break down that toothpaste a little bit with some more water. I'm Team Dele on this. You go water, toothpaste, water, spit, rinse. You use lots of water with the toothbrush.
I'm with Timmy, absolutely. That's how I do it as well. I don't know. What about you, Dan?
Yeah, same. Yeah, Team Dele.
Wow. So see, Dele would be just blown away by you, Sam. Like, you don't put water on before you put on the toothbrush. So those are the things that you're missing.
Like, you guys probably all brush your teeth with an Adidas toothbrush, don't you?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah, you know what? It's funny. I've never been asked that question before. Years ago, somebody asked me, like, what was your routine in the shower? Like, what's the first thing that you clean when you
shampoo?
What?
Shampoo first. You got to get the hair. You got to get it like soaking into the hair. But you do the body while the shampoo is like sitting into the hair.
Oh no!
Actually, what I do is I shampoo first, and then I clean my manly parts, then I rinse the hair, then I conditioner, and I let the conditioner sit in while I soap up the rest of my body.
All right, so back up. It makes sense, right? With a new manager, there's not like with the city one, which I enjoyed watching. there was a culture there. Like there was a team culture. And I suppose with a new manager, right, he's creating a new culture. So if I'm hearing you guys correctly, what the big takeaway is what you're learning about the individual personalities. And these are, you're getting looks at players that you never really had a chance
Hey, real quick,
to see before. Yeah.
real quick, Sam. My
What?
wife can hear me recording, and she just sent me a text. Your pod is rapidly losing credibility.
That means we're doing really good. Okay. All right. So
Probably lost about 1,000 listeners after that segment.
Vast said, or one of you guys said, look, this is clearly for now, at least the first couple of 3 episodes, this is the Jose Mourinho show. So Washington Adams 2020 at W Adams 2020 asks, has the doc swayed your opinions on Mourinho? It did for him, maybe because he's a sucker for that stuff. I felt he came off looking pretty good. Sure, results matter more, but I feel those will come this season. Last season was just a clusterfuck. So I don't know which one of Dan or Vass is more of the I don't want to say Jose hater, but do you come away, Vass? I'll ask you. Do you come away liking him a little bit more?
I guess you do, because it comes back to this seeing the human side of him, and it's not the Jose that you see in front of the camera pre-game, post-game. The snarling Jose, whatever. He's a lot more relaxed now. He did make me snigger a couple of times. One was when he switched the TV off and said "fuck off" when some fans. It was showing
Dan
some
says
fans.
that's fake.
Yeah, it's completely fake.
You reckon? Okay.
Yeah.
It made me snigger there.
Do you know also?
Snigger and,
Sorry, go on. No, it's all right. Go on. Carry on.
What happened?
Go on. What'd you say, Sam?
Well, I was just curious. What happened, Dan? Like, what was the scene?
Go on, Dan.
Sorry. Yeah. So it's basically they dubbed over some audio that they recorded in post production saying, "Oh, Jose Mourinho, do the fans like him? I don't really like him. He's a Chelsea fan. You can hear it on the telly." And then Mourinho goes, "Fuck off," and turns the telly off. He could have been talking about anything. It was complete bollocks. And do you know what was also bollocks as well? Was the Jose Mourinho shoes. That wasn't his shoes. That was someone taking the piss saying.
No.
It was someone taking the piss saying, they're Jose's shoes. And he was, oh.
Yeah, they were taking the piss. I don't think they were Jose's shoes. No, I agree with Dan there. But
so go on, Vass. Sorry,
yeah,
go on.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I mean, it's worth a watch, regardless. And you can make your own mind up ultimately. I'm looking forward to the next 3 episodes, put it this way.
How many are there?
Sam, I will tell you one thing you would have liked from this is Mourinho talking with Levy, and Mourinho's telling Levy about what Sir Alex Ferguson told him. One of the only things when he went to United is buy Dele. And you could see the smirk on Levy's face, and he starts saying, yeah. And you could just tell Levy's turned down multiple bids from Dele. That's what I took from that conversation, is that United did come in for Dele, and Levy turned him down because Mourinho was talking about trying to get him.
Well, there was another clip as well, Sam, about Ericsson. Daniel Levy, I found this quite interesting. Daniel Levy and Jose were just sitting in, I think it was in Jose's office or wherever anyway, and they were talking about Ericsson. And Levy said something along the lines of, "It's hard to know what he wants. We've had no communication from his agent for ages." Right, so essentially they were getting silence from Ericsson's agent, and then Levy says to Jose, "Well, why don't you have one more chat with him, see if you can get him to stay?"
Really?
Yeah, and then at least that way he says to Jose, "You can say you've tried everything then."
So speaking of, I mean, like the whole week, everybody was talking about Jose. But now you mentioned Levy, and you mentioned, some interesting stories, right? I mean, how did he come off? What was your impression of him? And was he featured much?
It was featured mainly in the first episode, I think. I think one of the first things they showed was somebody asking him, "How do you think you are perceived?" And he turned around and said that he thinks everybody thinks of him as being hard-nosed, not caring, and that kind of thing, which I don't know how much that may have been prepared for him to sort of get that message out that he's not like that.
Yeah.
But he was in it a little bit, and they asked him about the Pochettino sacking as well, and Levy said it was one of the hardest decisions I've ever had to make. There was a lot of emotion involved in that decision. My heart was telling me not to do it, but my head was telling me that I needed to do it. And he goes, it was really hard because we've spent a lot of time together as friends outside of the club, and hopefully we will again at some point, he goes, but maybe not right now because it's all still a bit raw. So, there's little things like that they can pick up, I think.
The one hot conspiracy take that I've almost convinced myself is the case is that the fact that Pochettino features not at all and Jose's in it, like Tim said, he is the star of the show. I am convinced, fully convinced, you will not convince me otherwise, that this documentary, whether it was 1%, 2%, 10%, 20%, played a part in Levy sacking Pochettino.
Come
and bringing
on.
Jose Mourinho. I'm serious.
No, I can't
I'm
buy
serious.
that.
I'm serious.
Say that.
Well,
What
because
makes you say that?
it goes from a manager not speaking at all to the whole thing being about Mourinho. The whole thing. It's not really a Tottenham documentary. It's a Mourinho documentary. And
Well,
I'm
it is
not
for
saying.
now.
I'm not saying. Yeah, so far, good point. I'm not saying that he went, I'm going to sack him for this documentary. That is not what I'm saying. However, I think in the back of his mind, if he thought, I can get Mourinho in, this is that extra 2%. This documentary will go off a bit more and it will get more eyes onto this documentary. Because let's be honest, a documentary with Pochettino would have got a lot of viewers, but a documentary with Mourinho would have got global viewers, and it probably will be. It's not the whole thing, but I think there was a little bit there that played a part in that decision.
Well, I think we'd all agree he's a fascinating guy. I mean, you whatever your opinion of him, I mean, he's got a tremendous body of work, and if I don't care who you support, if you're a football fan, there's interesting insight to glean from this. I just think he's a fraud. Or I fear that he's a fraud. And so I think that, I fear that this is all bullshit. The shame about me not watching this is that the guy that I'm more fascinated with is Levy. And I'm hopeful that more of his personality comes out in this show. And that it's honest. It's not contrived, because I'm genuinely fascinated about the man that he is. All right, so we'll move on here. There were some surprises about.
Sorry, mate. Beard made a comment for you. That kind of.
Nothing. Yeah, that is Beard at JPF 920. We love Beard. Joyce is a cunt. Nothing really changes that. You're probably right. Even seeing him in a forum where he very clearly knows he is. I mean, kind of good to see he owns it, I guess. Honestly, Sammy, Potch wouldn't be mad at you if you liked it. Funny.
Here, let me say one thing about Jose that I like seeing is his interactions with certain players, and you can tell 100% he picks favorites. He really does, and you can tell how much he loves Eric Dyer. The meetings that he has, multiple ones with Dyer in his office, they speak in Portuguese during most of their meetings, the two of them. And he talks about, and Dyer also talks openly about how Mourinho tried to sign him previously before Dyer came to Spurs. Not even just United, but like from his youth career when he was in Portugal. Wow. They talk about how Mourinho tried to sign him and knew of him. And they show a clip of Dyer scoring a goal as a youngster against a Mourinho side. And then Mourinho talks about how it like hurt him to yank Dyer off at halftime, or not even halftime, I guess, in that Olympiacos match when he brought on Eriksen, and how he felt that he needed to start in the next game after that benching. So you can tell Jose clearly picks out favorites. Dan, I want to know what you think about Jose speaking to players in their own language, and what you think about him now trying to learn Korean to speak to Sonny, because you avoided my question in the chat, and now I got you on a place you can't avoid it.
I think I've said this before on the pod. I've said it before that I think he's genuinely probably a really nice bloke, and I think he comes across really well. And you can see why the players love him. That Materazzi video where he left Inter is the biggest example of the spirit that he gets from his squad, and I respect that. He doesn't seem like a terrible guy. He seems like a really nice guy. That was never my problem with him. And yeah, I mean, learning Korean, great. Sonny would appreciate that, and that's that extra
Never
1 or
speak
2%.
Korean.
That's that extra percentage of player manager bonding that he's going to be able to hopefully get out of the players for next season.
Hey, was there a scene where I think it was a session of basically him being announced as the manager, and I think he had a kid. I think he had a jersey, and then somebody I think I read an account where he asked the cameraman to stop for a second so that he could kiss the badge. Did you guys either see, or was this in the show, or did you guys hear anything about this?
No.
He did something with the shirt, but I can't remember if it was kissing the badge.
Okay, well,
the one thing you do pick up as well is that he's always like doing a little prayer or pulling out a cross and kissing it before things. And after he sent the team out to play, he'll just go into his little room and maybe get his cross out again, give it a little kiss and stuff. And that's not, I don't know, is he really that religious? Was he putting that on? Is he superstitious? I don't really know, but it was something that was picked up anyway by me.
Well, there's no question that a documentary like this exposes and picks up on those little things, those little personality things.
Yeah.
And if there is one thing that I clearly missed from not watching it, it's things like that. And I'm sure those types of personality exposés are going to continue. So those are what, like total of 10 episodes? Is that right?
9, I think.
9,
3. Yeah.
Okay.
3 each
Right.
Monday.
I did like, and I did see the clips. I love it when he says "fucking hell." I do like that, and he says "fucking hell" a lot.
He does. Yeah.
So yeah. So all right. Well, but by all accounts,
like when he hears that Sissoko's a big name in the dressing room. That
Oh,
was
yeah.
his response. Like when he first shows up and he's asking about the players, and they tell him like Sissoko's a big name in the dressing room. He goes, "Fuck."
So what do you mean by that? Like Sissoko's like a big personality that he's very vocal?
Yeah.
Or like I guess influential. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I've heard
what's his assistant's name?
Shao.
That was surprising. And then Harry Kane, we got a question about this. Let me find it. Here we go from Steve, our friend Steve Oxy Oxen from Arizona Spurs. He's at Oxy Arizona Spurs. We were always assuming that the captain of the club was quiet off the pitch, but great in the dressing room. All we have seen is H and Jose players before hitting the pitch. Where is Hugo, or will that be a different episode? So, was it surprising to you all that Sissoko was a big presence in the dressing room? And Dan, I'll ask you this: what were your thoughts? What were your takeaways about Harry Kane's presence?
Well, do you know what? Actually, so I said that as well. I was really not shocked. So that's probably the wrong word, but I was pleasantly surprised to see how vocal he was in the dressing room. He was doing half of the team talks by looks of things. Him and Jose would say, "Do you want me to do this, or should I do this?" Like the final sort of 30 seconds of "Come on, boys," and he was very good at that. And he is. You can tell that he is the captain of the club as well as Hugo, if not by name. I think the one thing I would say though is that I tweeted this out yesterday. I said pretty much the same thing as listener said, and someone said that Hugo was actually injured during this first 3 episodes of timing. He was out. And it was actually someone said this to me, that he was actually a weird omission that he isn't really included so far. But I'm presuming that 4, 5, and 6 we hear a lot more about Hugo Lloris.
Yeah, we'll probably see Hugo in the next few episodes. He was injured at the time, and I think Harry stepped in as skipper stroke leader. It'd be interesting to see if he continues to do that once Hugo is back. Harry's swearing almost felt a little bit contrived because you don't really hear him swear too often, and that was interesting. But the one thing I did notice about Harry Kane, there was a team meeting following the 2-1 defeat to Man United at Old Trafford, and Jose's saying to the team, "I don't get it with you lot," or something. He says, "You all look like you were hiding," right? And he was telling them this. And then Harry Kane put his arm up and, "Can I speak?" "Yes, go ahead." And Harry Kane was like, he said something along the lines of, "Yeah, we do this all the time. I don't understand why we do it. Players are too afraid to move out of their positions. Players are like expecting other players to cover for them and stuff like that. And it's no good," he goes, "we're doing it all the time." So, and what I picked up from that was one, that he was ready to make the point, obviously. But secondly, I think he's getting frustrated by it. The fact that we kind of implode when it comes to the big game on occasion.
Yeah.
And that's concerning for me, because you don't want Harry Kane to be feeling like that really long term. So it'd be interesting to see how that one plays out.
No, but good
along the lines.
Good that there's a level of honesty in the dressing room, right? Those things can be talked about. Sorry, Tim, go ahead.
I was going to say, along the lines of what Vass is pointing out with Harry Kane and what we're talking about with Harry, one of the biggest negatives is you haven't seen any other leader other than Harry from the team right now in these first 3 episodes. And granted, Hugo is out with his dislocated elbow during this time that the first 3 episodes cover, but we haven't seen anybody else step up and lead in that dressing room, or at least the camera hasn't shown it. And that's what we've talked about before in previous pods, is with the signings we're making, we're bringing in leaders. I think this really shows that we did lack leadership.
Yeah. I think that's an excellent point. All right, we're gonna move on. We're gonna move on to backup striker, a sore subject for, frankly, a number of years. Both Alistair Gold and Fabrizio Romano reporting Spurs will sign a backup striker. We have a question from an engineer. He's at Paul Gray 99. He says no one else currently at the club can play the Kane role, and we, that's well documented here. Tim talked about that earlier. Son is not. He's not a number 9. To enter such a busy period with no alternative to Kane is stupidity. What does the panel think should happen? Should be bought? I'll start that with Dan.
It's just the same old thing with Tottenham, that we go into a season needing some sort of striker. We can't find one. We can't spend too much money on one because he's not going to play. But at the same time, we don't want to spend any money on other players that are young, like Callum Wilson, for example. I mean, this is going to sound not this guy, but we need someone like Llorente, especially with Mourinho. We need someone like him who can come on if we need a goal near the end of the game, and or deputise in the style that Mourinho wants when Harry Kane is out to play with Son or whatever. I mean, really, we should be buying someone who can push Kane or play with Kane. But I'm just so deflated with the idea that we're ever going to do that I've just sort of given up on it, really.
Is the problem that Harry Kane is that good that the option for dropping him on occasion isn't really there? We know in the past we've all discussed, and other fans have discussed, about who could you really bring in to play a backup role to Kane, and we tried to bring someone in like Janssen. That didn't work out. I don't really know what the solution is or what the type of striker that we need to find is, but suffice to say that we are still in this situation where we do need someone to come in and either play alongside Kane or play instead of Kane if he gets an injury. Because the last 2 seasons, Harry Kane's had injuries and we've not got a full season out of him.
Mm-hmm.
Tim, I want to end this discussion with you, because if there's anybody in our group that probably has a feel for who would be logical candidates, it would be you. Harsh Mishra, he's at Simply Wink. What are our realistic strike options in this market? Give us a handful of players that you think are potential practical solutions for, as we've all agreed, a difficult position to fill.
I think a lot of it's going to depend on what opportunity presents itself to us, because right now I don't think the names like Diego Costa, Luis Suarez, Edinson Cavani, Gonzalo Higuain, I don't think those are realistic, because one, they're coming from being big profile players and are not going to want to sit behind Harry Kane and not get the game time. Two, they're going to have huge wages. So you're going to have to let the market settle to see if one of those players just can't find an opportunity and is then willing to change their expectations on the club. So realistically, right now, I don't see any of those big names being a target at this moment, with still a month left in the market. Maybe you end up 3 days left in the transfer window and they're saying, okay, well, I'm out of a job, or my club doesn't see me in their current plans, and I need to do something to keep playing. That might be where it presents itself. Another one is Milik from Napoli. He's wanted to go to Juve, and I guess Fabrizio Romano's reported he has personal terms agreed with Juve, but they're looking at different targets right now. And if they don't land their targets, then he's kind of their plan B. So if we're going to get a player like that, someone I think he's around 26 years old, who could be seen as somebody who's not at the end of their career, but could have an impact here for future years at Tottenham, that's another one you're going to have to wait on until later in the window. Players like Callum Wilson, who just went for 20 million, that's not a player that, we're going to get in the bidding war for. And then, what the fuck is that?
Who's that?
Is it a beep?
Yeah.
It's the street cleaners outside. Sorry, I've got all the windows closed. Everything.
Terrific.
No, then the last thing I was saying, we're just not going to get into a bidding war for it. So Callum Wilson, we're not going to pay 20 million for him. Ollie Watkins, who is probably the best fit for us, the one we should go after. We're just at this point, I don't see us getting into a bidding war. So I think we are going to make a move, but it's going to have to be with what opportunity presents itself to us. Is a player looking to make a move, or is there somebody who is willing to kind of sit behind Harry Kane and doesn't mind playing a backup striker and getting his opportunity? And I think, one player that's been talked about with Alistair Gold is Habib Diallo from Metz. It's probably going to be a player who, one, sees Tottenham as a step up in their career, so that it's that type of player who's going to say, okay, this is at a higher level than I've been playing. And I understand I'm not going to start behind Harry Kane, but this is the level I want to be at. And so when he was being rumored, I sent it over to our YouTube scouting expert, Vass, to let us know, who is this player, Habib Diallo.
What you got, Cody? What do you think of him?
Well, to be honest, I hadn't heard of him until a couple of days ago. And I'm thinking, damn, another young player from the French league, that's going to totally end in disaster, isn't it? We've not had much luck buying players from France. But listen, as a second option, someone coming off the bench, I was quite impressed with him. He's good in the air. He's scored goals with header. He's a tall guy. He's good with the ball at his feet, very nimble and skillful. Composed in front of goal, takes a mean penalty. Not that he'll get a chance if Harry Kane is playing, but he's playing for a pretty crap team at the moment, and he's doing okay. I think he scored something like 15 goals for them and had a number of assists as well. I believe he's only 20, so why not? I mean, ultimately, it's an option, and I think possibly we should pursue it if it's a realistic target. The other option, I think you've either got to go for somebody young with potential to play behind Kane, or you've got to go for one of these experienced players that Tim was alluding to earlier, who aren't really going to want to come and sit behind Kane. Because I don't think we're going to end up changing formation to accommodate a second striker anytime soon. So it's a bit of a quandary, and it always has been.
Well, I'm wrapping up here by just saying, Vass, as you said, we haven't had a lot of luck buying young European potential backup strikers. I mean, it's just been an absolute disaster for Spurs with Ng and Kudu, Jansen. It's just we've gotten that wrong. What I do like about our business thus far is that we've got Premier League experience, and I think there's something really to be said about shaping a mentality and changing culture when you've got sort of tried and tested players. So that's kind of my take. What's interesting is that we signed somebody and none of us caught it. Like the first signing of this year, we made no mention of it whatsoever. And if anybody should have caught it, should have been me. On beginning of June, I think it was like June 11th, we signed a new director at Spurs. And to be fair, this guy's not just any old guy. And I'm disappointed that of all people that missed this, it was me. So we added a director, and his name is Jonathan Turner. And he went kind of announced without a whole lot of fanfare. But this guy's kind of the real deal. I mean, I kind of dismissed it when we announced this back in June because he's an Oxford alum, and I just figured this was a buddy thing with Levy, putting one of his chums on the board, but it's not the case at all. So this guy used to work for Credit Suisse years ago, and he ran their investment banking division for all things internet. And they had a guy at Credit Suisse, guy by the name of Frank Quattrone. And I don't know whether any of you guys ever heard of him, but for all intents and purposes, he was the most important technology banker in the world. And he left Credit Suisse and he started his own firm. What I didn't know is this guy, Jonathan Turner, started this firm, and this firm is called Catalyst, and it's spelled QAT. LYST. And so you're probably asking, well, why am I even bringing this up? Because the short version is that COVID is changing a lot of things. And I've always said, and I think I've made it, I've shared it on the pod, I don't think Daniel will ever sell. The ownership structure is such that Enoch owns 85% of the club, Daniel owns a third of it, Joe owns the rest. Joe's in his 80s. He's got kids. They don't seem to have any interest in the club. And Joe's main business is a business called Tavistock. And Tavistock is a collection of companies, very, very heavily concentrated in travel and leisure, hotels, frankly, industries that have been very negatively impacted by COVID. So here's an 80-year-old guy. He's got, $1 billion asset on his balance sheet, Spurs, in addition to all these other portfolio companies that have had a hell of a rough time this year. Is it inconceivable that he might want to sell down some of his shares? And that's a fair question to ask. At the very least, really smart, wealthy people like this have a succession plan. So we had this first signing back in June, this Jonathan Turner, and we had another signing. In fact, we really actually had a bit of a board makeup switch this week. And we hired a guy named Trevor Birch, and he's a really well-traveled executive in the Premier League. And he's been involved with a lot of stuff. He worked for Chelsea when Chelsea sold the club from Ken Bates to Roman Abramovich. He's helped clubs like Swansea stay away from bankruptcy. He helped Leeds navigate a really tough time. And by all accounts, this guy has seen it all, has done it all, and is actually as a person is very, very well regarded. Seems by all accounts a pretty good guy. We've hired him. So now we've hired Jonathan Turner. We've put this guy on the board, and he's running all of football operations. And we actually had Rebecca Capelhorn doing that prior. She's moved on to governance issues. So I bring all this up because something's going on, and it's worth paying attention to. Meanwhile, you guys may have heard of a guy named Billy Beane. Billy Beane was the genesis of Moneyball, right? The Michael Lewis book that became a movie. Yeah. Brad Pitt played him. And, he basically took a mid-market team like the Oakland A's and, nickel and dimed his way into a successful franchise and became very, very famous as a result. He has started a company. Have you guys heard of like SPACs, these blank check companies? It's like all the rage now. They basically come out with like a general purpose and they just raise money and they say, well, we're going to go buy companies. Well, he's started one. He's backed by an investment banking firm. And they went and raised an IPO and created a blank check and raised about 527 million pounds or dollars with the sole purpose of doing something football related. So there's a lot going on
when you say football, are you talking soccer?
No, well, I mean, I think it's soccer. He's a minority owner in Barnsley. He took a 5% stake in AZ Alkmaar. So they got a lot of dry powder to do something football related. And so my whole point to bringing all this up is it's very fluid. I don't think that there's a set desire to sell Spurs. But watch this space, because we're not putting a Jonathan Turner on the board, and we're not putting a Trevor Birch on the board just to have good executives. I mean, I think there's going to be something that will be that could potentially be happening in the not terribly distant future. My sense is that Joe will sell down his stake. He'll sell it to somebody that will probably still keep Joe as the majority owner. It'll have Daniel as the second majority owner, and then this new, I say minority, but somebody will probably own 20% of the club. And that way, Levy will still be in control. He'll be able to buy out the rest of Joe's shares at some point and still be sort of the king of the heap. So, Tim, I apologize. I said I'd take 5 minutes. I swore to you I wasn't going to say the word EBITDA, which I really didn't. But But I think there's some things to work in. And shout out to a couple of people that I chatted with these conspiracy theories this week on Twitter. Anyway, that's all I got. So we're moving on.
Could it not be just one comment on that? Could it not be just a restructure to give Daniel Levy more time to do other things like building the NFL side of the arm, commercial revenues, etc., just taking some stuff off of his plate rather than anything deeper than that?
Well, it certainly could be, and I thought about that. I mean, look, we're a bigger club than what we were, 2 or 3 years ago. When you have a stadium like we have, and you have myriad of issues like we have that have developed, since our growth, Daniel's been doing too much. So you could make the argument this is just good corporate governance. This is just building a good team around you. But I think a guy like Trevor Birch and an M&A expert like a guy like, put it this way, Jonathan Turner knows Jeff Bezos, right? Like that's the kind of guy that he is. I mean, if you go look at the announcement when him and Quattrone started this firm, like the CFO of Google is waxing poetically about Jonathan Turner and his deal-making capabilities. I mean, so yeah, look, I think these are good moves, Vass, but I think there's more to it than that. You got an aging owner that hasn't got an overt succession plan, and he's got businesses that are hurting. It's not inconceivable that these are discussion points, and you want to have good executive resources to, look, you're going to have a lot of people just trying to be opportunistic. And so now you've got executive management that can field those calls, handle those issues, and see whether, deals actually get done. So anyway, just interesting stuff to note. All right. Did I nerd out too much there, Timmy?
It was informative, Sammy. You did not put me asleep.
Yes. All right, mission accomplished. All right, and you know what? Kudos to my man Andy Toronto. He's also in the same business that I'm in. He's Koi's YYZ. What do you make of the Trevor Birch appointment? Is it a prelude to a sale? Is he the new public face in transfer dealings? Does Levy still pull the strings? I think that we've got. I wish that we had striker options as good as our executive management, because we got some pretty stellar people. Working for us, and hopefully we'll be influencing decisions. All right, season preview. The Masked Chef at Chef Resnick. Where do we see Spurs finishing this season, and which of the trophies do you think Spurs have the best chance of lifting this year? Not just based off talent level, but also what Jose will go for the hardest. Will it be league position finish? What will our league position finish be, and which trophy? We'll talk about some other things. Tim, I'll ask Dan to start this one off.
Tough one, because usually I'd have said the League Cup would have been our trophy this year that Joseph would have gone after. He said it publicly before that the first trophy of the season is always the one that he wants to win. He's got a very good record in it. However, this year, with the absolute clusterfuck of fixtures we potentially might have, I don't really know. I saw we got drawn to, was it Plymouth or Leyton Orient today?
Did we?
I think so, yeah. Plymouth or Leyton Orient away. Not that it really matters, especially if it's Leyton Orient. But so that's coming up, and we've got 3 games a week for the first 5 weeks. So I don't know really. I think he's going to go gung ho for all of them. I presume we're going to play a strong team in most competitions when it's not Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday for the first 5 weeks. It depends. We might not even make it out of the qualifying rounds, but who knows? I
think the trophy target, and one that I can realistically see us going for, would be the Europa League. I'm half expecting us to go quite far in that competition. And having said that, we'll probably get knocked out in the qualifiers now, but that's the one I think Jose will be aiming for, most definitely. And as far as the league goes, I think I mentioned a couple of episodes back that top 4 places will be decided by the teams that defend the best. And I think Jose gives us an edge there. As much as I don't really like his particular brand of football, we'll see what he can dish up this season. But if he makes us defensively sound, then that would give us a bit of a chance.
Tim, you have a hot take here?
I actually agree with Vass. That's my hot take. I think I think Europa League trophy is probably the one that I think has the most likeliest opportunity for us, just because Jose's success in it in the past, and I I think we're going to do better playing against some European competition than Premier League competition. I really do. So I think that's probably the one. I think we're going to really struggle, trying to qualify for a Champions League spot. It's the Premier League is getting even more competitive. It was already hard last season, and teams that we're competing with have improved so much this offseason. So it's going to be really tough, really tough. Europa League might actually be our route into the Champions League. I don't know if I wouldn't say, we're anywhere close to being locked on as a top 4 finish at this point.
Man, I'm always full of opinions going into a season, but I can't remember a season where I don't have the foggiest in terms of what are realistic expectations for us, especially with a long transfer window, right?
Sammy, let me ask you this. What is kind of your bare minimum that you would accept? I'm not saying you'll be happy with it, but what is kind of your bare minimum of acceptance going into this season?
I'm not sure that my view of Spurs as a top 4 and a trophy team has changed. I think that's probably it for me. Make top 4, and we have a trophy.
So your bare minimum is a trophy, which we haven't won in going on. Is it now 13 years?
But it changes this year for 2 reasons.
Is it 13? Am I right? Wait, real quick. Am I right on this? Will this be 13 seasons?
Will be.
It's a long time.
We've forgotten something, though. We've forgotten something. The year ends in 1 next year.
Oh, we're not doing that.
There you go. Dan's perked us all up.
We're winning the league, lads.
I had a discussion back in 2011.
Yeah.
No, but seriously, but Tim, you make a fair point. But what I felt like we were on that progression. That level of expectation with Jose was certainly there was nothing wrong with that. And I think that we've brought this guy in, aside or not taking into consideration all the challenges, all the issues we have. We're in a win now mentality. So I don't think that really changes. So a top 4 in the pursuit of a trophy is sort of my expectations, and frankly, if we make top 4, I'll be pleased, and I think that I think I'll be reasonably pleased, and I think I could draw positives and things to look forward to the 21-22 season.
I'd be more than happy.
My expectation is we brought Mourinho in, we want him to win trophies, but I'm not going to say after a COVID-filled summer when everything is just fucked right now and the start to the season we have, I'm not going to set that as my bare minimum that I'm going to be so upset if we don't. I mean, I really want us to, but bare minimum for me is getting back into the Champions League, whether it's through Europa League or through a top 4 finish. And some people may say, well, that's settling. Well, if seeking improvement is settling, then yeah, I'm settling because we didn't have it last year and I want to get back to that. And I think that's the starting point is we need to get back into Champions League to help us moving forward.
Yeah. All right, Tim, it's time for me to find some music for you. I know it's on my hard drive at home somewhere. We're gonna bring back the injury report music. I'm surprised that so many people like that. I think it's great. And
they love hearing your voice singing.
I don't like to hear my voice. It's terrible. But we're a week away from the season, so it's time to get back and talk about injuries.
So yes, looking at the week ahead, this will be one of the very few weeks where I only give an injury report for one match because it's going to be a shit fest after that. But one match, Everton this upcoming week, they do have a couple of injuries. Jean-Philippe Gabamin, I know I fucked up that pronunciation of the last name. Just deal with it. He's out with an Achilles injury. Sanctosin is out with an ACL injury. And this is why I get paid the big bucks as I look into these things. Mason Holgate over this weekend picked up an injury in their friendly against Preston North End, a toe injury. He went down the tunnel in the first half. He left the stadium on crutches after the match. So that's one to look at. They said they were going to be assessing him at the day we're recording right now, today, Sunday. So I don't have an update from that assessment yet, but he did pick up an injury this weekend. Yerry Mina returned to training last week, so he may be the one to fill in for Mason Holgate at center back, and he could be available for our match. But those are the injuries for Everton. For us, we've been very quiet. We haven't issued any injury report. So you kind of just have to try and read into things. Lo Celso was carrying a groin injury at the end of last season. Tanganga was carrying a back injury at the end of last season. They are our only two players not to have featured in preseason matches. We know they're not out with COVID because they are being pictured around the team. I know Tanganga's being pictured doing some drills. They were both on the Skywalk video that the club put out. Lo Celso's been seen at the stadium at matches, even though he's not involved. So they're not absent with COVID. So I'm just having to speculate that Lo Celso's still dealing with his groin injury. Tanganga's still dealing with his back injury. And I would be surprised to see either of them start this match against Everton. But those are your injuries looking at the week ahead.
You're on mute, Sam.
Damn it.
At least once.
Like, it's the one constant one of us is going to do this. We have a Premier League match to review. It's unbelievable. That's just
we will have next week, yeah.
Yeah, we've got a Premier League match to review. So let's talk about how we think Everton will set up and what will be our response tactically. Anybody want to tackle this?
Well, I mean, I have my opinions on it, but if anyone else wants to jump in on Everton's tactics, go for it.
Somebody get Tim started off.
No.
All right, so I'll be quick on it. Everton under Ancelotti, they play a 4-4-2. That's the system that Ancelotti's used a lot in his managing career. They defend deep. They press with their two front players. That's going to be Richarlison and Dominic Calvert-Lewin. Playing around those two when we build up our attack is, I think, going to be a key for us. They can get exposed if you avoid that initial press because their next two lines of 4 players sit back pretty deep. So Davies and either Aurier or Doherty could be the keys on this one. The big matchup is going to be whoever is tasked with defending Richarlison because he plays a bit deeper. He's the one who starts their attack, looks for Calvert-Lewin up top. So whoever we match him up against is going to be key to look at. I don't know if we're going to do Højbjerg because we've had him pressing up higher in these preseason friendlies, so he wouldn't be the one marking Richarlison if he's pressing high up the pitch. So that's one thing to look at. And then Everton has they've addressed their biggest issue from last season, which was their weak midfield. They made a big move for Allen, bringing him over to reunite with Ancelotti, who he played for 2 years before. He's going to help protect the defense that led in the 8th most goals last season. They conceded 56 goals. And so a lot of that was due to their poor defensive midfielders. So that should be kind of your tactics to look out for against Everton.
Cool.
Well, clearly we're going to win the league. We're going to beat Everton like 8-0. Here's how we'll end. Dan, name one player that you desperately want to see in the starting lineup next week.
Doherty.
Okay.
Simply because it means I won't see Aurier.
That's harsh, man.
Tim, one player. Who's your player?
Højbjerg.
VK? Cody?
Kane.
Fair enough.
You know what?
All right, look.
Bring me.
Who's your player, Sam?
I want Stevie B. I want Bergwijn. I want Stevie B.
I know you guys want to end this, but we had the question last week, Eddie Gomez on Facebook, and we said we would address it. He just wants us to name who our starting lineup is for the game. So I know you guys want to quit talking to me.
All right.
So let's just name the starting lineup, and then we're done.
Okay.
I have a quick question, though. Could we play a 4-4-2 with Kane and Messi?
Did we sign Messi and none of us know about it? So.
Yeah, you got some ITK
In the know.
Or Gareth Bale. Could you play a 4-4-2 with Gareth Bale and Harry
All right,
Kane?
Sam, we're trying to get out of here, okay? Let's answer the damn question.
Yeah, stop asking more questions.
Go. All right, well, we know that Hugo's in goal. Who's our back? What are we going to play? Back 3?
4.
No.
Back 4.
Back 4?
It's going to be a 4-2-3-1.
Okay.
The biggest question is going to be, is it Aurier or Doherty? Keep in mind, Doherty hasn't had a single training session with the team.
Doesn't matter.
No,
It doesn't matter.
Get him in.
He's not that bad. I don't think he's that bad.
Aurier's not that bad.
All right, so we got Aurier, Davies, and who are you two?
No.
Dyer and Toby, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Dyer and Toby, Davies. I would like to see Doherty, but I think it's going to be Aurier just because Doherty hasn't had a single training session. We have a lot of matches, Dan. We have a lot of matches.
We want all around the club.
Three.
Yeah, but not
midfield three, right? Vass, who's anchoring the midfield three?
Midfield 2, Sam. 4-2-3-1.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, 14.
Yeah.
Sorry. So who's going to
Probably
play?
Højbjerg and Winks. Højbjerg and Winks, yeah.
Højbjerg and Winks. Okay.
I'm nervous about the Winks versus Richarlison matchup. I would rather see Sissoko against Richarlison. I agree that I think Winks is probably a better pairing with Højbjerg, but for who we're going up against, Winks against Richarlison scares me. Also, he withdrew from England duty, so I don't know if he's available to play right now.
I think Sissoko is going to play as well.
All right, fair enough. So and then Harry Kane. Oh, we got
Dele's
three.
son Lucas Kane. I think Dele's son Lucas.
Interesting.
They played 90 minutes this past week, getting ready for it. So I think it's clear.
Well, it's a fascinating world that we're living in right now. It is a fascinating time at Spurs. Never imagined that we would be in the situation that we're in with the leadership that we do. But I'm really, really, there's two things in life that I'm really, really intrigued about this year. One that I really haven't given a shit about in a while, which is the NFL, because I just think it's intriguing what's going on there as well. And Spurs. And I think this is going to be a fascinating season. And my fingers are crossed, and I hope it all works out. And I'm totally stoked that next week we're going to be reviewing a Premier League, reviewing a Premier League or previewing. No, we'll be reviewing a Premier League match.
I'm just totally stoked that Sam doesn't hate Spurs anymore, and he's excited for the season.
I'm excited because I think that there's a really, really interesting narrative that's gonna be created here, and I have no clue.
You just really needed that reset button hit, right? You needed all that tables to go zeros for everybody all the way down. You needed to just see it.
Fuck, 20. I needed the first 3/4 of 2020 just to be eviscerated. And we just, hit the eject button and the reset button, and we're starting again. So I like you all again. I like Spurs again. I kind of like our manager. Kind of like maybe prospects. This should be interesting. I have a lot of stuff to talk about at the very least this season. I think we can all agree on that. Anything else we missed? We went a long time today, didn't we? Do I miss anything?
No. Just everyone, please do leave us a review on iTunes and wherever else you get your podcasts from, and subscribe to YouTube, and you can see our faces for whatever that's worth.
We're going to win the league. Come on, you Spurs.